I'm Ryan. This is my brother Daniel. This is Rolls in the Family. Today we are here to talk about May, board gaming in May, and the best board gaming in May.
Wow.
For us, anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Just for us. Just for us.
Just for us, though we always love hearing
We do.
what games other people have been playing.
Great point. Ryan. Wow.
Drop in the comments below. You know, sometimes they're ones we're pretty familiar with. Sometimes they're ones we want to try. It's always interesting to hear how other people's experiences are going.
We read through every comment. You think they know
we
that?
We do. If it isn't clear.
I mean, we read through all tens of comments we get.
All tens.
All 10.
Even respond to most of them.
Even most of them. Unless it's main, then sometimes we...
Not a lot of Diagonal activity on the...
That's true. Because half the time I don't know what people are talking about. But
that's okay.
Anyways,
Diagonal, you've made it pretty far on this channel, Diagonal, with how little you really know about board games.
Yeah, so. I know, it's true. I'm really good at just acting like I know what I'm talking about. That's a key skill.
I mean, it's a really realistic wallpaper actually behind you.
Yeah,
it like almost looks like a shelf.
I know
of games.
it was shockingly expensive. Yes.
Nice.
Yes. Anyways,
so there will be 6 games talked about today, and we will link all 6
every single one
in the description below. You could check them out. You could even buy them. Isn't it a great world we live in?
Man, Amazon, you could one day delivery.
You could be having as
Same
good of an
day,
experience
maybe.
Within a day or two.
It still blows my mind when you make an Amazon order and it
shows up hours later.
It's like hours later. It's like, wow, what a world we live in.
What a world we live in. On that note, let's get this going with Daniel's number 3. I almost said number 6, but
oh boy, yeah.
Actually, been a blunder.
I will say May was a good month of gaming for me, and so I maybe could have even had a 6 quality choices here, but we had to cut it down to 3. The folks that don't have all day, they've got better things to do. So my number 3 is gonna go to a game that you got first, then was given to me, I believe, for my birthday. It might have been from you siblings, but is one that just actually got to play 2 times this month. And more I'm just realizing it is one of the best, I would say, kind of gateway games. It's so accessible, simple, yet a lot of strategy. And this is going to go to Cascadia. So once again, we had a church board game social or whatnot. So I got to play this. I played it twice this month, actually with the same group. It was my wife and I and another couple. And we played it once there, and then we also went over to their house again and played it right after. They like to, after learning a game, they want to play it again immediately. So they,
It is interesting how people are different in that regard, because I've had friends that always want to play a new game.
Yeah.
Like that they just want to explore it. And then, so I always have to ask, because I don't want to force new games on people if they'd rather just play one.
Right. Well, it's like they hate learning a new game and then we don't play it for 6 months and then you forget again. So it was kind of nice, I think, to get that quick repeated play of it. And so got to play Cascadia. I'm going to specifically, my top play was the second play of it. And Cascadia always just amazes me at how beautifully it balances just really simple mechanics with a lot of depth and thinking if you want it to be. From a mechanics perspective, I know we've talked about this before. I mean, you could play this with your little kid.
I actually did. Once
did Toby play this?
I did it with my 3-year-old. I think we played on the family version or something. But I was honestly just curious, because we play other games with him that are matching up tiles.
Kid's a genius. Jeez.
Yeah, I don't remember how it went.
He beat you. Yeah. But anyways, the just mechanics of, little kid can match an animal and, match the tile, place an animal on, and play a game without, cheating for the
pretty much everything is legal as far as placement.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Just that mechanically, it's so simple. It's so fast to teach. But there's a lot of thinking in this game if you want it to be, because that whole just, you're placing, you're the paired drafting, and then you're matching the tile, and then you have to place an animal somewhere out there. It's just so interesting. You're always kind of, as you're playing, there's so many things to consider, because one, you kind of want to keep your animal options on your map as versatile as possible, so that as the draft comes, you're not, you're only relying on one or two animals to come up. So you're kind of flexible. You obviously are trying to maximize land while also like matching them together, while also kind of keeping an eye on your opponents, because whoever's got the most in each one. So you kind of got that to think about. Well, then each animal scores in a completely unique way. And I love that each game, you randomize that. And so in our game, the elk, score for making a ring. And so I got a full 6 ring and was able to score for that. The bears would score for if you have a single and then a double and then a group of 3. Like if you could get separately. Okay. Yeah. And if you got all 3 of those, you got a bonus and whatnot. The birds, you draw a line of every straight line between the birds, and whatnot. And then the foxes wanted pairs of animals next to the pairs of foxes. So, and there's salmon as well. I didn't play any salmon, so I don't remember. I don't remember what they did. But then you're trying to manage all of that amidst the land, amidst the flexibility.
And everything you add is adding 2 things. So it's like 2 puzzles on top of each other, and you're always affecting both of them.
So it is funny because you teach the game, and people, I think, are like, oh, cool. This is like, really, it comes across really simple. And then it's always just funny to watch people as you start playing, and there's that moment of like, oh wow, okay, there's more to this than maybe meets the eye, and that's really fun for me because it's a great gateway game. But man, every single time I play it, it is working the juices, Ryan, working the juices.
Yeah,
so
those mental juices.
So anyways, we had just a blast playing it, and it's one that I would almost consider, most people, this is one that feels like a just staple to have in the collection because it just really works super well. So that was awesome to get that to the table twice. I've been getting to the table actually quite a bit since only getting it, last September. So
nice.
Yeah, one of the most accessible ones I have. My number 3, Cascade.
Yeah, it's a great option for kind of that gateway welcoming game that's a little more puzzly. Like in that niche, it's really good. We're definitely intrigued by the Landmarks expansion.
I am intrigued.
It does bump it to 6 players.
That's good.
Which it's funny because like I feel like all the reviews I watched were like, we don't care about the bumping to 6 players because when am I going to do that? I would play a different game. But I'm like, I don't know, a game that's sitting in this spot in my collection, being able to not have to rule it out because we have 5 or 6, even if it's not, maybe it's better with, 4 or 3 or whatever, but sometimes that could be really nice.
Well, if it can go to 6, I mean, that might be my most then accessible 6-player
game that isn't like a filler or a party game.
Right, so yeah, it's one to check out.
Point. So we'll see if we play that one at some point.
I know.
My number 3 is not one I would probably be pulling out with someone who hasn't really played board games before. It's a Table Hog. This is one of the biggest boards I think of any game I have. It's just kind of massive. You have not played this yet.
Okay, I'm thinking of a different game.
Fairly new to my collection, and this is Wonderland's War.
Wow, bigger board than War of the Ring.
That was actually that was the one that popped in my head of like that could be War of the Ring. War of the Ring is pretty big. It might be bigger.
Yeah.
But yeah, very massive board, lots of pieces. It's a very lavish production. It looks very cool on the table. And yeah, this was my second opportunity to play it. We had a 3-player game, which worked really well. It's always hard to know because it's very much an area control game that's driven by this bag building.
Right.
And what's the best number for area control? I thought it worked great with 3. I don't think I'd want to play it with 2. Area control gets a little weird with just 2 people. But with 3, I thought it worked great and kind of kept it a little faster than with more players. And ended up being a really close game. Our sister, shout out to our sister. We just recently posted her top 20
last 2
games
videos.
Of all time across 2 videos. We'll link one of those above. But she did edge out the win with the final scores being 69, 67, 67. It was just close. It's one of those ones where it's the type of game where there's a bunch of scoring that needs to happen at the end on the scoring track. And you're like the more that you check off, the more you're like, ooh, this is going to be really close, and like what still needs to be counted. Right. So it's kind of a fun ending to the game. But yeah, I got to play a different, because there's kind of the 5 different characters in the game that you can play, and they're very, very different. I mean, they all come with their own built-in special ability. They all have 4 other special abilities that start locked, but if you choose to draft the right cards or whatever, you can choose to unlock those additional abilities. And so I this time was the Mad Hatter, who's very interesting because his like built-in ability is that in the Tea Party phase, and I realize Daniel hasn't played this game, so he probably doesn't know everything. I know I've described it a little bit to you, but there's a Tea Party phase where you're going around and you're drafting these cards, and every time you circle around the table, you have to roll the madness die to get shards, which is bad for you. So you can like go really fast to get the cards you want, but then you might be doing that more often. The Mad Hatter has this ability that once per Tea Party phase, because it's his Tea Party, he can just refill all the cards and just snag one without even moving, which is pretty nice to get something that you really want.
Yeah.
But then I also ended up actually unlocking all 4 of his unlockable abilities. So I was like fully maxed out with abilities. And it's cool because every character starts with a few of their artifact chips in their bag, which are just the 3 value chips of their type. And 2 of your abilities give that chip an additional ability. So it starts the game that chip just is a 3. But by the time I unlocked it, it was a 3 that also had like 2 additional effects on it. And then there's ways that if you upgrade on these forge tracks, you can get more of those artifacts into your bag. So every character kind of has that dynamic going. But it's interesting because with the Mad Hatter, whenever you draw the madness chips, which are kind of the ones you don't want to draw, that eventually they're the ones that like get rid of your people, and it's kind of like the busting in this game. Whenever he refreshes his bag, because those that fills up, I had an ability called Unbirthday Present that, even though that's a bad thing to happen usually, I would get to pick a strong chip to add to my bag, which are like the better versions of the chips. So I had this weird thing that's like I'm actually getting to upgrade whenever that happens. And then I got the one that my faction chips, they could actually, whenever they came out, go an additional number of spaces based on how many are in my madness track currently. And I could choose to put those into my madness track, which normally you would only do the madness. So I could kind of like force my madness to go faster to try to do some of these things.
Interesting.
So it's kind of an interesting dynamic of kind of playing into something that usually in the game is what you kind of don't want to be happening. Right. But I'm actually almost making it good for me. So yeah, that was fun, and it has the additional. I love how every game, the different Wonderlandians come out, which are kind of, again, you might draft a card that says you get to pick a Wonderlandian, and there's at any given time, I think there's 3 of them available in the market, and that's either going to be like a unique miniature, like I think it was our sister that had Humpty Dumpty, who now when he's in a region, like if you end, he's like really strong, he adds a lot of power, but if you end with an odd strength total at the end of the battle, he like, I can't remember what happens if he breaks or you lose or so it's kind of this risk thing, because it's like he's really good, but you have to end even, otherwise it's not going to help you as much. Which maybe forces you to push your luck more than you want to. But then there's also Wonderlandian cards that give you 2 unique chips that you get to put in your bag, and then those chips have a special ability. So it's another thing besides the unique kind of menu of normal chips that you can buy from. You can get these, unique ones.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's a lot of fun. I talked about before, like it's kind of one of those games that just is kind of pure fun throughout it, with the bag building and drawing the chips, and the pieces are all so nice and everything.
Yeah.
Still, like as far as like really strategizing in the game, I feel like as you play more, you start to remember what other people, because like the first time you play, you have so much to think about with your own faction that you're like, I don't even know what, Cheshire Cat over there is doing or whatever.
Yeah.
But like this time, one of the other players was playing the Queen of Hearts, which I played the previous time, and I was like, I remember some of what your character does. So I could see it being more fun as we continue to play same group. But yeah, very fun game, one that I am enjoying, and hoping to get it to the table more. I know our sister came away from it feeling like,
she won.
Ooh, this, yeah, exactly. but like, ooh, this could be a contender for, top lists in the future.
Is this a contender to play with me when you visit this summer?
So yeah, we're coming up on summer vacation time. I don't know if this one's going to make the trip because it's big. It's a big box. It's got like a ton of pieces.
Bigger than Foundations of Rome?
It's not bigger than Foundations of Rome, but Foundations of Rome is a lot more accessible. There's more situations where that might be the right game to play. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
You have to do the whole exercise of set all the games out and start seeing what fits into bags.
That's true.
We're road tripping, so we got
a minivan.
Yeah.
Just leave some luggage. You're good.
Yeah, just take the IKEA shelf and just
slide
back it into the van.
Strap some wheels onto it, hitch it to the back, and you're good to go.
There we go.
Very nice. Yeah, that one seems really cool. So it's one that I'm disappointed that you are not bringing.
Yeah, maybe when you come this way sometime.
Fair enough. Well, Ryan, we're to my number 2.
Yes.
This was another game. Got to play at our board game social, and it was such a joy. When you have a game that you love, and then you just have the perfect situation of like the right group. It's just like, thank you that I get to play this right now. I'm just so grateful. Yeah. That's what this was. And so my number 2 is going to go to Terraforming Mars. This actually was the same couple that we played Cascadia with.
It's a big difference in game weight.
Yeah,
there.
No, and they're big gamers. So
cool.
So they've played Terraforming Mars, know it well, and so everyone knew it. No one had to learn.
Nice.
We did play with. We didn't do drafting. We did just and that helped mainly. That was probably more so just from a time perspective. And whatnot, but it was a delightful game, and it was one of those. It was a really interesting game because I feel like a lot of times, when you play, you kind of have a feel of who's winning. You kind of are like, okay, and that way you can like send the asteroids at the right.
Though
person.
I have seen, it's true. Though I will say it does obscure it. Like the longer the game goes on, the harder it is to tell.
It is difficult because you got the board presence, you've got obviously the
like if you haven't been paying attention, there could be somebody sitting over there with 20 points in cards, right?
And even just
really
like
swings
and
it.
even I think it's confusing or not confusing, but just a little obscured with the awards of maybe if you're picking up second place on a few of them, you might notice who's winning, but you don't notice this person actually got second on like all of them, and they're snagging a lot of points there. So there's a lot of different ways of kind of getting points, but it was a weird game for me, Ryan. Really not good. So I still pulled out a close loss. Like I think it was actually.
Did you say you pulled out? You didn't say you pulled out a close win. I pulled out that loss.
What I mean by that is I salvaged a blowout and rescued myself and pulled a close loss. Because my cards were just rough at the start, and I was doing so many standard projects. Actually, one thing I do love about this game is, especially early on, the tension between you're trying to like build this engine, but the race for those
the milestones,
right? Those are the ones on the left there, because only 3 people can claim them, and so I'm like, okay, I could like play these cards. Or I could just, pay for a city. And so I think I like at least twice just paid the 25 mega credits to, build a city. And so I ended up getting the 3 city milestone because, it is huge to like at least get one of those, I feel like.
Yeah, it's 5 points.
It's 5 points. But it's always a hard trade-off, is paying.
Yeah, because building those cities isn't doing much for your engine. You got like 3 money production out of it.
Well, the reason I actually was doing it was the guy next to me was Ecoline, so he's the one doing all the plants and stuff. So yeah, I was always going next to at least 2 plants or greeneries. So I was getting points there too. So like, so that was kind of the reason I was just doing way too many standard projects. I'm like, this is so inefficient.
It's usually not a winning strategy.
This is not efficient. I forget the name of the corporation, but it's the one with the energy where anytime you play an energy tag, you pay like I think it's like 3 less or something like that. Or whatnot, and I didn't get that many good energy tags, so I felt like I didn't.
And that's where if you're not drafting, it hurts a little bit.
And so I felt like I didn't really use my corporation that well either. So that's where I pulled out a close loss. Was a happy. I was like, okay, I didn't do as horrible as I originally thought, but it was really cool because it was coming down to the end and we really had no idea who was winning the game. Like, there was the guy with all the plants out there, which obviously that's like, wow, that's, a good amount of points, but he didn't have a ton of cities and whatnot. And so we're still kind of tight. Well, it was actually his wife, and she was the one who wanted to play this game again because she had, she had played it once and wanted to like play it again to like remember the rules. And she pulled out the victory. And, there's always part of me that it feels so happy when someone, is able to, someone who, maybe hasn't like won that game before or something like that, gets the satisfaction of like winning a 4-player game. Because that's a kind of the prime play for that game. Yeah. So it was just one of those things where, it was just exactly why I love Terraforming Mars. It was it delivered the Terraforming Mars experience, and just the entire that game just from start to finish is so riveting. I did tell him because we were playing his copies. That's why in some of these photos he's got custom player mats and containers and stuff like that. I did tell him Prelude is.
So he didn't have
Prelude.
Yeah,
and, that is a must buy because it just injects even more awesomeness into it. But even without Prelude, it was a fantastic time. So super glad to get that one to the table. It's been a little while since I've played a like 4 or 5 player game of it, and it delivered just like I was hoping. So there you go, Ryan. Able to get Terraforming Mars, but not number 1.
Yeah.
Only number 2.
It's probably because you lost, but
but close loss.
Yes, pulled it out.
I pulled it out. I snuck a close loss.
Yeah. The announcers are like, he's done it.
He's done it.
He lost by not much.
Yeah, it was riveting. So,
well, Dango, what we haven't talked about much recently.
Do you actually want me to guess?
It's been a little too. It depends what your guess is, I guess.
Okay, I had a few thoughts come to my mind. None of them board game related, but
yeah. We have not talked recently much about kids board games.
My god,
there's been the rare time where they've popped up on my top one, but we're back at it again. And this is with a new kids game that I acquired that actually is like out of print. Like you can't get it.
Then why are we talking about it?
But I had some games from my collection that I was selling, leaving the collection.
Mm-hmm.
Probably showed up in our last games leaving our collection video.
Oh.
And there was someone who was interested in one of the games and sent me a list of games that they were potentially trading, just to see, like, are there any that you're interested in here that could work into it? And the game happened to be on there, this kids game that I knew was one that I wanted and you can't get right now. And it's like exactly perfect for where my son is at right now, both kind of like level as far as maybe what the next step game would be and theme. So this is the game Ghost Fightin' Treasure Hunters. And I tell you, my son Toby has been very into like ghost fighting. I don't know exactly like what.
Do you watch Ghostbusters?
It's not like all the time. No, though we play the song sometimes.
Okay.
But something got him kind of into this theme, like he would make believe it a little bit and stuff. And then we actually were talking a little bit about Luigi's Mansion. I was actually playing a little bit of the
one of my favorite video games, man. I've played that game so many times.
Yeah, so we played a little bit of that together. But so I was like, oh, this is a great theme. Like the theme is literally the kids are going into the house with the ghosts, fighting off ghosts and trying to get the treasures all out before like the place becomes haunted. And it's kind of like a kid's light of like something like Pandemic. Like it's in that kind of same flavor of it's a cooperative game. Things are popping up around and you got to kind of like manage it to make sure that you don't like reach the losing condition. And let me tell you, this has been an absolute hit. I mean, it is how it sometimes goes with kids games where like, I'll be like, I played this game, 30 times this year. Yeah, those 30 times were like within like a 20-day span because it's like, kids latch on.
How many plays are we talking about in May, Ryan?
So
what are the stats here?
In May, we played it 18 times.
Wow, that's pretty good.
But as far as kids games go, this one averages at about a half hour. So it's not a short kids game. Like it's
90 hours. No, 9 hours.
And it's a great kids game. I have to say, it is a shame that it's not available. I hope it gets like reprinted. I don't know if it's like between printings or if it really just like is not being printed right now. But man, it is like just an excellent, like just streamlined, but kind of gets into that like stepping stone to some of these cooperative games and the type of thinking, and seeing my son picking up on some of these little things like if you're in a room with a ghost at the end of your turn, you get to roll a die and see if you get the ghost. But if somebody else is there with you, you get to roll 2 dice. So, there's times where I see him realize, oh, I could go fight this ghost. Oh, but if I go to where you are, I'll actually get to roll 2 dice against this ghost. And that's like easy for a kid to be like, 2 dice is better. Like I should do that.
Right.
And so I like that. I like the dynamic of the goal is to get all the treasures out. But if you're not doing a good job of fighting ghosts while you do that, that's what makes you lose. Because whenever a third ghost is added to a room, it haunts, and then you'd have to go with 2 people to try to like get rid of that. And if there's 6 that are haunted, you lose. So kind of teaching that like, balance of going after the objective, but also, keeping the loss condition away. So he's been asking for this one like literally every morning. Like we just like play it like every single day. And I did not play it this morning. I had a rough night's sleep last night, and then I ended up sleeping until shortly before we got on.
Ryan literally we hit record and Ryan woke up.
Yeah, well, this is how I roll out of bed.
Yep. You're sitting on your bed right now, right?
Yes. Didn't you know this? This is my bedroom. I sleep like just below the camera here. So we even have now stepped up. We were playing like the basic mode. We moved to using now like the advanced mode, which adds some kind of new rules where now, when you flip a card each turn, usually it's just saying a ghost comes out in room C or room E, and you put those out. But now you can get ones that are like all the green doors lock in the building. And like you can't go through green doors until another one comes up or the deck is forced to reshuffle. So there's it makes it feel a little more dynamic of like, oh, I was going to go this way, but now that's locked. Or, and then the other big change is that now instead of just needing to get the 8 treasures, whenever you get to them, you actually flip them and they have numbers, and we actually have to bring them out in order. So 1 has to be the first treasure to go out. And so that adds some more kind of just like strategy and timing, but nothing like too complicated that, he doesn't understand, especially, when we're reinforcing this game daily.
Right.
He's getting to the point where he's, he gets it. And I'm impressed, honestly, by some of it. And it's such an example of where like, because he's so drawn to the theme and the excitement of it, like it pushes him to learn it, which I think is some of the best type of learning for kids. So it's been a hit. It's always this thing where you play it, and then my wife and I are going, well, we got to pick up some other game or something just so we like, because he latches on. We haven't been playing a lot of other games, but very glad I had the opportunity to pick it up, especially because I really couldn't have otherwise, probably unless I was willing to pay $100 on eBay. So there you go. Hopefully comes back into print, because I want to be able to, on our kids videos on our website for kid recommendations, which I've been working on, will be coming at some point here. This would be like a top one in that, that category. So
I know we can't make money off of it if there's no link to it.
Yeah, and that's really the only reason we're doing this.
That's right.
Really
that sounds like a great stepping stone to Last Bastion. So it sounds like he's almost there.
Yeah. We'll do Last Bastion next. We'll just have to cover some of the artwork.
That is true. Maybe wait a little bit. Very nice. Wow, kids game in Ryan's top 3. How about that?
Yeah. Well, and I should say the one that specifically makes it is when we beat the advanced mode for the first time, because it was like this thing of we were playing the advanced mode, we lost a few times, and he was asking, like, let's go back and play the basic mode. And I was like, we could, but I was trying to
no.
explain to him that like, when we win, because we had been close, like it'll, be that much more exciting. And so it was very fun when we did finally win. We were running around the house and just like we had some people
over. Do we have any
pictures
of this that we can
he's
link
going
here?
And showing like all these people that have no idea what he's talking about with this game, like a picture of it. And he was just like so excited about it.
Oh my gosh.
So that was definitely, that even specifically, I think, powered it further.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a hard concept to explain to a child, that playing a harder setting is more a victory.
Yeah.
Because in his mind, it's like, wait, I win more.
We're having less fun because we keep losing.
Yeah. Why wouldn't we go? Aren't we trying to win? Like, let's, so it's.
Yeah, no, it is, which is why I kind of was trying to push towards, because I was like, this could be a good learning opportunity and like experiencing that, but I wasn't going to like play hardball, like if he was going to really, but glad we got to do it.
Very nice, Ryan. Very nice. We are now coming down the home stretch here to our number 1 of May. Of all the games that got to the table, this was the one that came to the top. Ryan, in a previous video, we had a cold video, and I got rid of a game that is pretty highly regarded in the board game world. In a game known as Scythe. And
some would call it.
I had to remember if it was Scythe or Scythe. And I think Scythe is what
I think more people say Scythe.
It rolls off the tongue better. And there were several reasons for that. I don't know. I liked the hybrid element. I liked the presentation, but I don't know. The combat was a little more aggressive. Like, it just felt terrible when like someone just like, wipes you out and takes all your resources. Also felt like the game a little bit fell into just like who can run around and grab all the adventure tokens. And for some reason, the way the game always ended was never like that satisfying for me. And other people have different experiences. That was mine. So anyways, my wife didn't like it that much. And so ended up being like, okay, it's going to be leaving my collection. But I really wanted to replace kind of that hybrid style game, and was finally able to. This was actually we talk about when we get new games, we play our games. We don't just buy games.
We don't really have much of a shelf of shame.
So I was actually feeling the burden of having got this game and gone months without playing it yet. Finally got it to the table with my wife, and this my number 1 play of May is going to go to Dwellings of Eldervale.
I'm very intrigued to hear about this, because we haven't really talked about it, but I had pegged this way back when this game got a lot of hype, and then after that was like not available for forever. I was like, this seems like one dang, I should check
out.
And
it's always funny, our dynamic, because you'll like recommend something, and so like I'll buy it, but truly have no idea mechanically like how the game works or anything. And so I'm like, discovering it as I'm, learning it for the first time. So anyways, we got to play a 2-player game of this, and we loved it. And the key is my wife really liked it as well.
Nice.
It just the system of mechanics I find work super well and are just super it felt very streamlined in how it all worked. And so first of all, just big box, although it's a little funny. So the box is like way bigger than it needs to be if you just have the standard version, because you can pay all this extra to get these like huge miniatures that make sounds as you. So literally like a fourth of my box is filled with just these empty boxes just to fill the space. But like you would use it if you had the
Kickstarter culture for you, man.
I know.
It's the world we live in.
But anyways, the presentation is just beautiful. It's got it's got custom trays for every single like faction, I guess what you would call it, and very functional. All the custom trays make setting the game up really fast, which is really, really awesome. And so, it's kind of a, worker placement in terms of your putting your workers out on you put them out on a tile, and then you take the action of the tile. And so your first one, you have to you can put out anywhere as long as it's not in a place of another person, and then from there you have to play adjacent to where you've placed, and so you're going to keep doing that until finally you can either place or you can regroup all your workers. And what's really interesting about that is you're then building up all these cards that you're purchasing. And whenever you regroup, any of your workers out on the map can go to a card and take the card action. So you're like taking actions in the regroup as well. Now that's really interesting because that kind of starts to get into a little bit one of the things with combat. So if you're ever in the same space as either another player or a enemy monster, it starts combat. And actually, when combat starts, anyone in an adjacent tile can optionally enter in. And so this game would be really interesting. I really want to try it with more players. I think it would be a lot of fun. But I'm always a little worried just with combat. I just find some games combat either is just really tedious. It's like, oh my gosh, combat. Okay, here we go. Let's resolve it. Combat is brilliant in this game. It is so just quick. You literally just so whatever people you have in the combat, each worker has a die amount assigned to them. So your base workers just have 1, whereas like your dragon I think rolls 3 or something like that. And so you literally just add up the dice, and then there's various, you can spend swords to add dice and whatnot, although you can only go to a max of 6 dice. You can never roll more than 6. So, but then both players just roll the dice and you compare your highest value, and if whoever's
just
got
the highest value
highest value die of all the dice, and whoever has the highest value wins the whole combat. And that result.
And does it like tie break down?
And then if the top one's tied, so it's really, I love it because more dice obviously gives you a better odds,
but you always
have a chance, and it's so quick. You just roll, boom, look, okay, combat's over. The other thing I like about combat is it's not devastating if you lose. In fact, sometimes it's actually, you kind of, it can almost be good because whenever you go to the underworld, all your people go to the underworld, you get a sword for each unit that goes to the underworld. So it's actually making you, more powerful going forward. But you're going to get those workers then back when you regroup. The downside is those workers can't go to cards when they group because you take them. So that's one of the things.
So it's almost like their return action was get a sword.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of the whole dynamic with combat. And I loved how that worked. So then you have this whole kind of main board that has all the elements and kind of these elements tracks. And you only use the element tracks of the elements that are in each game. And so you always use the elements of each character that a person is using, because your character is like with an element. You actually start up 1 on that element. But then like in our 2-player game, we use 2 other random elements. And so you shuffle all those tiles, and those are the ones. And this is actually where I want to say a little similar to Scythe or whatnot, but the element track is kind of what controls how you score in a lot of different areas at the end of the game. Because not only where you're at, each level of the element track has like a victory point value, but then like each card that you purchase, it's assigned to one of the elements. Every card is going to score victory points based off where you're at on the element track. And each there's something else that I'm forgetting, but it scores based off where you're at on the element track. So the element track, you're wanting to really get up, good on that, because it kind of controls a lot of the victory points and whatnot. But the then other just huge thing with this game, and it's in the title, is that you can also build dwellings with your workers, and you literally take a little hat, dwelling hat, and put it on your little meeple. And now suddenly that on the one hand, you lose the worker. So you've actually lost a worker to place. Each tile can only, and it has to be an element tile, can only have 1 dwelling on it. So once you've built a dwelling there, no one else can. And it's permanently there, but that's beneficial. Not only does it make you go up on the element of that matches the tile that you built it on, but also now every combat on that space and adjacent to that space, you get +1 die. And so you're actually improving, and you score victory points. You get like 2 victory points for every realm tile that you're adjacent to, and 2 victory points for every other dwelling that you're adjacent to. So dwellings are incentivized to be, next to each other. So there's just kind of all of that came together and worked in such a fun just a really fun system. I mean, you've got these magic cards that both can do kind of immediate things, but they also have quests in them. So like little things of like, and I love games that have little goals, throughout the game of like, oh, go do this and then claim it. And you get, these things. And then they also they call them prophecies, but basically just end game scoring cards, and whatnot. And Kaylee, my wife, came out on top in the game. Nice. And so, that's always helpful with her liking the game and whatnot.
Yeah, it's cool. It sounds like it plays well at 2 players. I wasn't sure how it played.
Yeah, and
like
right. And I think it'll be better. I think 3 is going to be kind of the sweet spot of it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Just getting that kind of extra person with the interaction. Oh, the last thing I want to mention that's so cool about it is, so when you're going to these tiles, each elemental tile has treasure tiles that are as kind of stack on them. And so whenever you take the action of an element tile, you take the treasure token. Which is good on the one hand, because not only can you just at any time discard a treasure token to get the resources listed on it, but it's a little square, and all the cards that or not all, but some of the cards that you're purchasing have square slots where you can, instead of spending a treasure token to get it immediately, you can slot it into there. And so you're like
it's part of the return action.
You're like customizing your cards based off the return action. So I can make
cool.
And you can customize either, sometimes it's on the left side in terms of what you're spending, and sometimes it's the right side in terms of what you're getting. So you can like customize, oh, I've got a ton of these resources. Yeah, let me use this as a resource that I spend to get this.
That's interesting.
So a lot of customizing happening with the cards too, which was really, really fun. So I think it's got a ton of replayability and whatnot. But I will say, Ryan, when you come out this summer, this needs to get to the table. Especially because Kaylee liked it too. I think a 3-player game of this would be a really great experience. So yeah, it kind of, I was thrilled with it. It was wonderful. And it just felt like it's like, yes, this is exactly the kind of hybrid game I was looking for. And so it was a really great experience. Yeah. My number one, Dwellings of Eldervale.
It always is nice, especially with a big, expensive game.
Yeah,
it just lands the way that you wanted it to.
Yeah, and I truly had no idea if my wife would like it. Like I had apps, it's like she might not. And I think all the interesting stuff kind of worker placement, the card customization and stuff like that, and the fact that combat just isn't that negative, and whatnot. And then just really cool that each faction, is unique. So, you've got your units and your workers, and then you've got every player's got a wizard, a warrior, and a dragon that you can summon and bring out. But each faction might have a different ability attached to a couple of them. So like my warrior could, when I'm playing my first placement after a regroup, normally you can't place into an enemy place, but I can. And then the other interesting thing was, whenever my guy died, I could spend a sword to basically power him up so he's permanently got a plus a die. So he actually, my whole faction liked dying, and then my dragon could like bring people back from the underworld out onto the map. And so
that's cool.
Really cool stuff with the unique factions and all that. Enough to be said.
Enough, yeah.
Sorry,
you're
my
raving.
gosh, Ryan. It was so beautiful, so wonderful.
Nice. Well, speaking of very big, expensive games that were crowdfunded and have nice storage trays that make it easier to set up.
We're turning into what we said we never were going to be.
I know. And that we definitely should play this summer when we have the chance to play together. This is Foundations of Rome at my number one.
Number one.
I have talked about how I had the opportunity to try this, just a 2-player game, but it was not a very representative game, and we were tired and we were learning it. And I was like, I really want to get a feel with like a full group. And well, I got a full group. We played with 5, which is the max.
Baby.
So you're on the biggest grid, and man, it went great, honestly, I thought. And I think everybody playing, it is funny because you're bringing out this big looking game.
Yeah.
So like people's expectations of the type of game they're playing, like it can look a little intimidating.
They have the opposite reaction of Cascadia. They think it's going to be crazy heavy.
It's like, and it is a thinky strategic game, but it's very rules light. You know, I mean, it's like borderline. I mean, I compare it sometimes to Ticket to Ride because it follows that formula of like you always pick one of three actions and they're all very simple. It's like you either take money, you use money to buy a deed card, or you build on, you know, deeds that you already have. And so it's always what you're doing. But yeah, it was such a great time to get to see how this game plays out with more people, because man, is it a highly interactive game without being mean. It's just that you all are on the same shared board and it like matters what people are doing. Part of that just is built in with, so there's three different types of buildings. There's commercial buildings that when you build those, you're going to make more money. Like whenever you collect money, you're going to get more. There's the citizen buildings, I think, or residential buildings that increase your population, which at the end of every era, you're going to score compared to other people on the population track. So that's like actually, and it's actually very interesting how it scores, because it isn't just like first place gets this much, second place gets this much. It's first place gets what their population is, plus the bonus for winning. But then everybody behind that gets whatever the next person is. So like if first place is at 12, they're going to get, you know, 12 plus something. But if I get second place and I'm at 5, I get 12 because 12 is the person that's in front of me. And so it's very variable. Like sometimes passing somebody to go from third to second isn't really worth it because the first place person is just a little bit ahead of that. So I'm not actually changing mine. Where in our game, we had someone who was hammering population. And so they were so far ahead. So suddenly that battle for second place was really important, because if you get second, you suddenly get the score, you know, the value of that guy that was way ahead. So that like played a very interesting dynamic in our game. So that's very interesting. But then the third type of building is your civic buildings, which all of those score based on what they're next to on the map. And it can be anybody's buildings, not just your own. So I might be like, ooh, there's, you know, some commercial buildings here. I'm going to drop this civic building that's going to score for those. And so it's everybody's kind of playing off each other. But then there's also these overbuilding rules that you can replace buildings you have with something else, but only if the building you're putting out is bigger than all of the ones that are being replaced. So I can't just swap out like a 3 big for another 3, but I could go from a 3 to a 4 if I had like the right plots to do that. Or I could turn 2 2s into a 3, and then that would just leave the 4th square as like a plot I own again that's like not built on. And that's fascinating because you can totally switch. You know, previously I had a commercial building here, but now I'm switching it out. And now I have this, you know, civic building that's scoring because now I've seen that things developed in a way. Or, oh, this person's actually scoring off of my building. I'm going to, you know, swap it strategically to help me and actually also hurt them. So very interesting play on the board. But then the other huge interaction point comes from the deed row. So the deeds are coming out, and a deed is just like a square. So it's like C4. If you get that, you own that square on the board for purposes of building. And those come in this market that on your turn you can buy them, but the further in the card row they are, the more money you have to pay for them. And then as people buy them, they slide down. And so it is this whole game of when you see one come out that you're like, ooh, that's one I really want because it's next to things I have. I can build bigger buildings. How willing am I to like wait and see if it comes down, you know, versus like paying a lot to just make sure I get it. And so then you're kind of looking, well, who else would be interested in this plot? Who is near there? Because it's all about, you know, you want to typically get plots that are close together. Or at least that was where my mindset was for most of the game. Because it's like, okay, you want plots close together because you can build bigger buildings. But then late in the game, I'm realizing, well, a single plot off in no man's land could still be really good because if it's surrounded, it could be a great place to plop down a civic building that scores for things that are around it. So like, even if you're not there, like there may be the opportunity to play something small that actually is very efficient scoring there. So you have to be careful and thinking like, oh, nobody's interested in that. Well, somebody might be, because they may see a scoring opportunity there. So that's very cool. We played with the monuments module, which feels like you have to play with, because that's what adds all like the cool like custom unique buildings, like we didn't have the Colosseum, but that's an example of one. I forget the names of all these like Roman buildings, but they're all these big crazy miniatures. And those are basically like common buildings that anybody could choose to build on their turn, as long as they like meet the conditions for it, which I guess is a little bit like World Wonders, right? That you've played. Like, isn't that kind of how the Wonders work? Is like anybody could build these, but you have to like meet whatever it is to build it. And so you can get those, and then those effectively oftentimes work kind of like civic buildings, where they're, you know, scoring or producing in different ways, and they're typically better. And so I'm really just impressed by the interest of the decision space with how light the rules are. And it's, you know, I can't deny it looks really cool to see this giant grid build up with this city of all these crazy miniatures. And yes, it's what's making the game cost so freaking much, but there is something to be said that like it elevates the experience. I think some of the people we played with were interested in playing it partly because of that reason of just like, oh man, this game looks really cool. And so I'm very optimistic about kind of me liking it enough to keep it, but also just being able to pull it out and play this big game with people that aren't usually going to be the type of people that want to play a big game. But man, I think it has a broad appeal. Like I could see people who prefer heavy strategy games having a great time with this. And there's like some interesting strategic considerations, but similar to something like you were saying with Cascadia, it's got kind of that feel of like, you don't have to think that hard if you don't want to. You don't have to think about every way you could be strategically overbuilding to like do something clever. But you can. And so I could see it really working well with kind of a spread of people within the same group. It was I said it was a 5-player game, and the 2 ladies in the group defeated all the men in the group. Because, you know, I don't know what it says about Rome, but it was a great game, and I think I'll be interested to see what you and your wife think of it.
I think we're realizing more and more that presentation and like the presentation of a game isn't just like this like thing that doesn't this thing that, because I think before we maybe even used to have kind of an opinion of like, oh, like we would never pay, you know, to like have a like
I would always prefer a cheaper version of the game as long as the game.
And I think it definitely depends on the game. But I think we're realizing more and more like, man, presentation can be huge in actually improving the experience while playing the game. And that's what board games are, right? It's an experience. And so mechanics are huge in that, but presentation also is huge.
And we still lean pretty heavily towards mechanics. You know, and I was very drawn to Foundations of Rome because of its, it was not like the presentation was not the driving factor for me being interested in Foundations of Rome. But
well, and to have a game like you said, a presentation like that, when most people, you know, that play games of that, you know, heaviness or weight or whatnot, don't get to experience a super high quality. So, well, I'm just gonna wrap it up here before Ryan dies.
I know, it's like I got too excited about Foundations of Rome.
We've seen Ryan
awaken something.
Seen Ryan die in channels before, or videos before, if you've been watching our channel for any time now. But there you go, folks. That is our top 3 plays of May 2024. Keep Ryan in your prayers. There you go. Well, guys, you'll have to tune in to our next video to see if Ryan made it through that coughing fit. But if you want to support him and his potential doctor visit, you can click the links below to purchase the games that we talked about in this video. Check them out for yourself. And we've got a couple more videos here, and we will see you guys in the next one.